Hey, Scott, ROCKFILE back with a podcast review for you. Let's talk about these 4K editions of the Mission Impossible movies, starting with number 1. In May of 1996, I was all about it. I was kind of a Tom Cruise fan. I was definitely a fan of the old show. I came out of the theater and went, that was pretty good. I'm a Brian De Palma fan, and at the time, I thought he was the terrible choice for the director. Watching it now, in retrospect, he was not only the perfect guy to direct it, he did things that we're still doing today. He set the bar for a lot of things. Now, granted, the Mission Impossible series moved away from this kind of almost comic book over-the-top style, but this did do some things that were way ahead of their time. My biggest problem with the original Mission Impossible movie is they kill off the team in the beginning of the movie. I always felt this should have been the second one. Introduce us to the team. Let's have an adventure. And then the next movie, kill them all off. In this one, we meet everybody and then we kill them off. And then we, have him on the run. And it's basically a one-man show. It's really about Ethan Hunt trying to clear his name. Watching it now, though, it works. Danny Elfman does the music, and the soundtrack just propels it along. It was an $80 million budget. Everything is up on the screen. Went on to gross $457 million, and that's why we have 6 more of these movies in 2024 with another one to come. I think it's funny at the beginning that Tom Cruise is playing Tom Cruise. He's very much not Ethan Hunt at the beginning. Maybe this movie was one of those there in the mid-90s that kind of signaled the change from the young, youthful, boyish roles into the more adult stuff like The Last Samurai and things like that. Because at the beginning of this movie, he's cutting up at the table with everybody else. He's another one of the cast, and he really is just Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise. Now, once everybody gets killed off, and I'm sorry about the spoilers, but if you haven't seen this since 1996, you should have by now. The movie's filled with some great set pieces, which would become part of what Mission Impossible is all about. Lots of scenes of Tom Cruise running, lots of convoluted storylines, which is another thing. Some of the negative reviews of this movie, looking back at it now, were like, it's too convoluted and really, it didn't need to be that much. This is what we look for in these movies now. We watch the Mission Impossible movies to see death-defying stunts and a really convoluted storyline you can't figure out before the end before they do. In the history of all of these movies, the first 2 are my least favorite. I don't go back and watch them. I start with 3 and go on up. But these, right before Best Buy went under last year, they released these steelbooks, 1 through 6 of all of the Mission Impossible movies in 4K. They already had 4K releases, but they were in these kind of silvery steelbooks that all matched. Well, I already have 6 and 7 in 4K steelbook, so I didn't have to worry about those, but 1 through 5 I've never upgraded. Well, I never got them, and Best Buy doesn't do videos anymore, but guess what? They were on Walmart for really cheap, so I picked up 1 through 5. And that's why you're going to get all these reviews, because I've never seen these movies in 4K. First one looks great. It's a native 4K transfer. Didn't get the upgrade in the sound department I'd hoped it'd get. I mean, it's a good soundtrack. It sounds good, and it looks great. It just won't blow you away. It looks very filmic. It was filmed on film back in the day, so there is film grain. Like I said, it didn't blow me away. It just looked really solid. Like, I will never watch the Blu-ray again because it looks so good. It didn't look like a modern movie. It doesn't look like the later Mission Impossible movies. But for the first one, they went back and did a good job on this 4K. The sound and video, good. Not the best I've seen this year, but again, this was a movie that I liked more now than I did back then. And all in all, I'm pleased with the package. Now, these silvery steelbooks you can get roughly around $20, give or take, on Walmart and other sites now because Best Buy is no longer. They come with the Blu-ray and the 4K and a sticker of the IMF logo. Also, the back cover of all of those steelbooks are a in-color IMF logo for the Impossible Mission Force. By the time you get to Mission Impossible 3, there is a third disc in there, which is a Blu-ray full of special features. But on the first 2, you don't get that. You just get the movie, and you get the movie on Blu-ray. The 4K usually doesn't have any special features, and they leave that on the Blu-ray. And then from 3 on, they expand to an extra disc of extras. And deservedly so. These stunts need to be seen. Rewatching the Mission Impossible movies, I have found a new love for the first one. It's still not my favorite one, but I like it a lot better. I think Brian De Palma did do a good job with it. I mean, he pulled out pretty much every trick out of his bag from the previous movies he'd made. And if you're a fan of Brian De Palma, some of his early stuff is now coming out in 4K, like Dress to Kill and Body Double. So those are some of my favorite Brian De Palma films. I didn't think he was the right guy at the time, but looking back, he did some things that even Marvel movies are still doing today. So that over-the-top comic book style actually fit the movie well and led right into what John Woo would do with it in the second movie, which will be another upcoming podcast. I will slowly be making it through these Mission Impossible movies as I watch horror movies in October and anything else that I come across. And as I mentioned in my last podcast, I have my last earthly items from Florida made it and have arrived in Kenai, Alaska, and I'm unpacking them this week. So as I get through that, there's going to be a whole lot of things I haven't had access to in years that you're going to hear reviews of. But anyway, we'll get back to the Mission Impossible movies with number 2 coming up in a podcast very soon. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to a podcast. If you haven't watched the original Mission Impossible movie, I highly recommend it in 4K. It's a solid movie and a great beginning to one of the best franchises of all time, actually. Anyway, thank you for listening. Have a spectacular day.